Hey, I'm glad you're here. My name is Jerrel. I make games for a living, and this is Sun Grand Channel, a place where we can talk about gaming and a whole bunch of other hobbies as well. Sony has made announcements that it will be creating a new mascot that it wants to have global appeal to be able to contend with the likes of Hello Kitty. Apparently, Sony is spending a lot of money, which is the only thing that Sony's leadership is good at doing, is spending money. I've not seen any indication that Sony is good at getting a return on investment, but their leadership certainly is good at spending money. So I feel pretty bad for Sony because they just lack the intelligence and the competence in their leadership to do anything correctly. So what I'm going to do there here is I'm going to do them a favor. I'm going to design a mascot for them. Uh, Character design is one of my favorite things as not just part of game development, but in general. You know, ever since I was very young, I really enjoyed creating characters. You know, it's something that's so interesting and exciting to me. So I'm just going to find like a cool brush, right? And I'm going to draw using my Wacom drawing tablet here, and we'll create a character, a new IP, a new mascot for Sony in real time because Sony doesn't have access to any IP where they can use a character as a mascot. They don't have one yet. Now, what Sony needs is a character with charisma, something that appeals to basically anyone, where anyone could look at that and say, "Hey, I like that. I want that." Uh, but you also need to let people know what your brand is about. Your brand, what you want people to do with your brand, what you are trying to say, what you're trying to communicate with your brand, and so. I want to keep that in mind, and it's so important. You don't just make stuff because, oh, I can make something. You know, you can generate something through AI, which Sony wants to do more and more. They don't really want to have to spend money uh, creating original things, and I'm wondering why they're wasting so much on this when they could find someone who's willing to help them out. Because I'm willing to help them out because I just feel bad here. So I'm taking into account what Sony um, really wants people to do here. So I'm going to start out with something like this, and just a torso, I think like that, but then and then don't forget the character's head like that. Okay. Now we need to make sure that the face has to be charismatic. Like that's one of the most important parts of the character, right? We'll give him a cute little mouth. How about one of these? Oh, that's I think that's where we should be right now. Let me go ahead and pick my colors here, so make sure I get that on screen here. I'll get a bit of white in there. And what I really like about the Wacom tablet is that you can use the dial here. There's a dial on the Wacom tablet. You can see I can adjust the size of the brush through that there. There we go. And I will be coloring this character as well. And let's go ahead and now make sure this character has arms. So I'll go ahead and I like to sample. I can get that line color back. I'll just sample that here. And let's go ahead. Here's the thing, though. What kind of arms should this character have? And I think, um, I think making use of noodle physics, from the early uh, days of cartoons. I think, um, maybe he'll put his hands on his hips, like something like, and I want to make sure I get that arc smooth. With digital art, it's so pleasant using a digital art. I grew up using traditional medium, and so it's so nice to have. But see, here's something that I want to describe to you as an artist is tangent lines, right? And these are tangent to each other, so they're kind of unpleasant. So I did that on purpose just to show you, it's you want to make sure that you don't have tangent lines like that because it's kind of unpleasant. And what I think we should do now, I think, we want to put his hands on his hips like that, and that's still a little too tangent, you see. So what we'll do is we'll make an adjustment to that. And I'm thinking about the line thickness of his uh, arm as it connects to his body there. But you see, that's a little less tangent now, they're intersecting more smoothly. But what are we saying? about that, you know? And so I think I'm gonna make a decision here, and I think smaller arms are going to be cuter. So we're gonna go for smaller arms like this. Okay? There we go. And so now we don't have the unpleasantness of the tangential lines, and we have the proportions of the character are now cuter. You see, if you have those longer arms, then the proportions are thus that the character doesn't look as young. Smaller proportions, like smaller arms, smaller body, it makes the character look younger and more interesting, or not interesting, but more have a more innocent appeal to them. And I want to make sure I get nice. So here's the thing in re if I were working in physical medium, I would have to keep erasing, but also you generally have more control over your actual line work, whereas here, I'm using a tablet that doesn't have a screen on it. Now, I do have, multiple Wacom tablets that do have the screens on it, but here you're kinda just sorta shooting in the dark until you get your angle just right. I'm gonna call it, because this is a free I'm doing this for free for Sony, so I don't want to spend too much time on this because I'm not going to invoice them for this character. This is free. Now, this is where things are going to get very, you need to be extra careful with this part because the legs are either what make your character look crappy or it becomes more adorable. So here's the thing. I can either do one of two things. I can just do little feet like this, or I can give them legs. But I'm kind of thinking I nailed it in one hit. So, um, we're going to go ahead and color this character in now. So you see I have the main color here. So I'm not sure what color this should be in terms of what Sony wants to do with their marketing, right? So what I'm going to do is I'll show you a trick here. So let's go ahead and use our magic wand, and I'm going to select the inside of the character. I have the shift button on my tablet here. So you see I'm clicking on the insides of the character, right? And what I'm going to do now is use the select tool and I'm going to modify, and I'm going to expand my selection. And I have that pop up on another screen, but you can see I'm going to increase that by 5 pixels and you will see the selection has gone into the line. So now I'm going to change my layer to color and I'm going to go back to my paintbrush. And what we can do now is just, I can use my tablet, can't I? And so now we can see that I can just color a bit more recklessly. You see that? And I don't have to worry about going outside of the lines because of the selection and the color layers underneath the line layer. So now I'm going to reduce the brush size. And what we're going to do is we are going to add a couple layers, and I've got a screen blocking my other screen here. I got a lot of screens here so I can work optimally. Okay, and we're going to call this, we'll just call that dark, and we'll put that there, and we'll call that light. Beautiful. Make sure we save our progress. Okay, now I want to maintain a degree of neutrality when it comes to lighting, temperature, but also I want it to look interesting. So I'm going to lean a bit more towards the red here. You see, I'm not just going down the color gradient in terms of intensity. I'm going to go a bit more red and make it a bit more saturated just so it looks interesting. And I'm just going to give this is just like a very, very quick shading to this character. I don't want to spend too much time on this. Again, I'm not going to invoice Sony for this, so I just want to do this very, very quickly. But we want the character to have dimensionality. So you see, I need to envision as an artist, I need to think about where the light source is coming from. And if that light source is going to be affecting the character, how would it affect the geometry? So none of this is real. This is not real geometry. This is nothing that exists. I have to envision it. And that is your job as an artist is to develop your ability to be able to envision and see things that don't exist yet. That's your job as an artist. Something does not exist, but you want it to exist. Okay. And you want to show people something that doesn't exist. It only existed in your mind before, and you've created it, and now it exists because of you. And that is what is so beautiful about creation. That is what is so beautiful about art, but also that is part of leadership is you have to be able to see the future. You have to be able to envision a future that does not yet exist, a world that does not exist, and you have to be able to bring that to fruition. And that is what good leadership is. Unfortunately, Sony doesn't have that. All Sony has, they're number crunching trend chasers. Okay. Now here's the thing: you don't want to overly shade the face, because if you do that, you give it a bit too dimensionality, you make it too dramatic and intense, and it makes things look really scary and intense. And sometimes you do want to make an intense character. Maybe you're in an intense scene, but for this character, I want to make sure that we don't take that too far. So I put that on the light layer, so let's go ahead and rename that now. So we'll go dark, and then we'll just name this one light, okay? Now, let us go ahead. Now I want to pick a lighter color, but this time I'm gonna lean towards the yellow. So you have the red here, and we're going to lean it a bit towards the yellow and make it lighter now. And that'll give the character just a little bit of dimensionality, and it makes it feel like there is a color temperature here. So we need to, again, we need to consider, um, what the light source is doing and where it's coming from. And I think I may have made it a little bit too yellow, so we're going to dial that back just a little bit. Oh, sorry. Hold on. Bring that back towards here. Okay. Something light. Okay. Something like that. And I think that it's still a little bit too yellow. So let's go ahead and dial that back just a little bit. And this is what's so great about doing art digitally, is that you can make revisionary changes very quickly, and it lets you work faster. Let's see here. But it's still, you are in complete and total control. I think I'm not liking how yellow that is. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring that right on all the way back. I think I'm going to, you know what? We'll lean towards the purple. How about that? Okay, there we go. I like that much better, but now it's too bright. So let's go ahead and just dial that down now just a little bit. And I think we are there. I think we got there. So let's go ahead and again, I have to now concentrate, and I need to envision what the shape of this character is. Let's see here. Okay, see, I've made a mistake there. I don't really want it to be like that. Okay, so I need to just work a little more carefully here. Okay. And every single brush stroke that you make is influenced by your entire life. Everything that you've learned about life, about art, about expressing an idea, about visual communication, every single brush stroke means something because you've lived your life. And so even doing something like that adds a bit of roundness, because I'm thinking about, I want this to have roundness to it, and I want it to have texture. Um, we are going to, how about like a little like a little zipper, it'll kind of look he's wearing a jacket of some kind. Let's go ahead and just zoom right in, and we'll give him like a little zipper. How about like that? Yeah? Let me think here. I'm thinking about, how about, okay, something like that. Okay, and then we will now sample our darker color. Make sure we go back to our layer there, and we'll go like that. How about, no, no, I think I'll go over it like that. Okay, and then light. What I like about the stylus is you can flip it upside down, and then you can erase any parts that you want to revise. So there we go. And now that's like a little jacket zipper. Okay, so we're going to call that and this character's name is going to be, let's see, we'll pick our color. I think a very good name for this character will be, oh, my line thickness. Okay. Oop, I want to make sure, I don't want to mess this up. I want it to look nice, because I am setting this to Sony. Okay. This is, ooh, a little heart right there. Dildy. Okay. I'm going to need to make sure I put my signature there. Okay. Just like, okay. So I've signed the artwork. And this is my mascot character that I'm submitting to Sony. This is Dildy. It is missing one small thing here, so I'll select my light layer just there. And if you have any questions about art, especially when it comes to the digital workspace like this, please feel free to ask in the comments. I'll be very glad to help you with your art, to give you advice, to answer your questions. Uh, just like a little bit like like a Vegeta's widow peak. Okay, so I've messed up here. Hold on, I accidentally selected a layer that I didn't want to select. Ooh, hold on, I need to step forward. Okay, make sure I select light. You know? Okay, there we go. Like a Vegeta's widow peak. There we go. A Vegeta's peak is what that is. There we go. And I think this is ready. So I am going to send this through to Sony. This is the mascot character, Dildy. Uh, and I hope that Sony will consider this, because if they're going to waste whatever $1 billion creating a mascot character when I've already created the perfect mascot for them, I think it's going to be a huge loss for them. So this is my submission to Sony. Uh, I'm not even going to invoice you. You can have this one for free. So this is Dildy. And I think this matches Sony's attitude, their philosophy towards their customers, is that Sony wants people to shove it up their ass. And I think this is the perfect mascot for Sony. If this video gets I I don't know, if this video gets 20,000 views, I will create a sidekick, a little fun partner character. You know, Sonic has Tails, you know, Mario has Luigi. So if this video gets 20,000 views, then I'll do a part 2 to this video. I left space here. I'll create a little sidekick buddy for him. And if you'd like to see that, then go ahead and share this video. Send this to Sony. I'll upload this picture, and I'll make it so you can download it. So check the description so you can download this, and you can send it to Sony on their social media. This is their new mascot. Take care of yourselves, everyone. I've got a very busy day with my own game development. I'll see you around.